He was 69 years old, a retired school teacher who coached Little League on weekends and walked 3 miles every morning without fail. His wife told me he hadn't missed a single morning walk in 11 years. His blood pressure was controlled. His cholesterol numbers were textbook. His cardiologist had seen him just 4 months earlier and told him he was doing everything right. That night after dinner, he did what he had done every evening for the last 2 decades. He sat in his recliner. He watched the news. He fell asleep in the chair, and he never woke up. His wife found him at 6:14 in the morning. She kept asking me the same question over and over in that waiting room at dawn. What did we miss? What did we miss? And the honest answer, the answer that has stayed with me for years, is that they didn't miss anything. Nobody told them there was anything to look for. Nobody warned them that what happens in those final hours before sleep can determine whether a heart like his, a strong heart, a carefully maintained heart, survives the night. Here's what nobody tells you. The hours between dinner and sleep are not neutral time. For a body over 60, they are a window. And what you do during that window either protects your heart or quietly sets it up for catastrophe. Today I am going to walk you through exactly what that looks like, what the science says, and what you can do starting tonight. My name is Dr. Richard Calloway. I am a cardiothoracic surgeon with 31 years in the operating room. I have opened over 2,200 chests in my career. I've held beating hearts in my hands. And in those 31 years, I have seen the same preventable patterns repeat themselves with heartbreaking regularity. Patients who did everything their doctors told them to do and still ended up on my table. The system gave them 10-minute appointments and medication lists. Nobody gave them this. That is what I am going to give you today. Before we get into the specific behaviors, I need you to understand something about why your body after 60 is fundamentally different from the body you had at 40. Because this is not about being older and weaker. This is about margins. Think of it like this. Imagine you are driving a car with 12 inches of clearance on either side of a narrow bridge. At 40, you have 12 inches. You can wander a little, correct, adjust, and cross safely. After 60, the clearance on that bridge has shrunk to 3 inches. You have to be far more precise. The car hasn't changed. The bridge has. What changes physiologically after 60 is your autonomic nervous system, the part of your brain that runs your heart rate, blood pressure, and vascular tone without you ever thinking about it, begins to respond more slowly and less predictably to change. Your baroreceptors, the sensors that detect pressure shifts and signal corrections, become less sensitive. Your kidneys filter sodium more slowly. Your blood vessels are less elastic, less forgiving of sudden demands. The margin for error narrows. And in a narrow margin system, habits that were perfectly harmless at 50 can become genuinely dangerous at 68. More than 60% of cardiovascular events in adults over 65 occur between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. The night is not safe harbor. For millions of seniors, the night is where the damage happens. Stay with me. Let's talk about exactly what those habits are. The first one is something almost everyone does. It is so common that it does not even register as a behavior. It just feels like part of a normal evening. And for people over 60, it is one of the most dangerous things they can do to their heart before bed. It is eating within 2 hours of sleep. Here's the mini hook on this one that most people never hear. It is not about digestion. Everyone has heard that eating late is bad for your waistline. That is not what I am talking about. What I am talking about is what happens to your blood pressure when your gut is actively processing a meal and your body is simultaneously trying to transition into sleep mode pressure reduction. Here is the mechanism. When you eat, your body diverts significant blood flow to your digestive system, the stomach, the small intestine, the liver. Blood pressure rises slightly to support that demand. At the same time, your body is supposed to be entering what cardiologists call the nocturnal dip, a natural 10 to 20% reduction in blood pressure that occurs during the first hours of sleep. This dip is not optional, it is essential. It is when your heart gets its closest approximation of rest, when arterial walls decompress, when inflammation markers fall. Non-dippers, people whose blood pressure does not fall during sleep, have dramatically higher rates of stroke, heart attack, and kidney damage. After 60, your body's ability to achieve that dip is already compromised by the physiological changes I described. Add a meal within 2 hours of bed, and you have created a direct conflict. The body is simultaneously trying to divert blood to digestion and reduce systemic pressure. In a narrow margin system, that conflict resolves badly. The age-specific amplification here matters enormously. In a 40-year-old with elastic vessels and responsive baroreceptors, the system manages the conflict with relative ease. In a 68-year-old with stiffer vessels and slower autonomic response, the dip is blunted or eliminated entirely. Research from the Journal of the American Heart Association found that non-dipping patterns were associated with a 60% higher risk of cardiovascular events independent of daytime blood pressure readings. Think about that. Your doctor could check your blood pressure at every single appointment and see normal numbers, and you could still be a non-dipper spending every night in elevated risk territory without anyone ever knowing. I had a patient, a 71-year-old woman, retired accountant, fastidious about her evening routines. She had dinner at 5:30 without fail. But she also had a habit of having a small bowl of crackers and cheese while watching television at 9 wow. She thought of it as a snack, not a meal. Her 24-hour ambulatory blood pressure monitor told a different story. Her nocturnal dip was virtually absent. Her overnight average was nearly identical to her daytime average. Has your doctor ever ordered a 24-hour blood pressure monitor for you? If not, that is a question worth asking. Write that down. The fix here is straightforward. Stop eating anything at least 2 hours before you sleep. Not 2 hours before you lie down in bed. 2 hours before you actually fall asleep. If you sleep at 11, your kitchen closes at 9. If you sleep at 10, it closes at 8, starting tonight. Now, this next one surprises people every time I bring it up. And the reason it surprises them is that it involves something doctors have been recommending for decades, something that sits in the medicine cabinet of virtually every senior in this country. It is taking certain medications at the wrong time of night. I am not going to tell you to stop taking your medications. That is not what this is about. But I need you to understand something that most patients never hear in a standard appointment. The timing of certain medications matters as much as the dose. And for specific drugs, taking them at night can create a pressure window that becomes dangerous during the hours when your body is most vulnerable. Here is what I mean. Diuretics, water pills, are prescribed to millions of seniors with high blood pressure and heart failure. They work by making your kidneys excrete more sodium and water, which reduces blood volume and lowers pressure. They are effective. But if you take a diuretic in the evening, it will be pulling sodium and water from your system during the hours when your body is already reducing blood pressure for the nocturnal dip. In a patient with good autonomic response, this is manageable. In a patient over 60 with stiff vessels and slower correction mechanisms, it can create a pressure drop that is too steep, too fast, leading to what we call nocturnal hypotension, blood pressure that falls too low during sleep. And nocturnal hypotension in seniors is directly associated with silent strokes, kidney injury, and, counterintuitively, morning heart attack, because the body overcorrects when you rise. I want to pause here and ask you something personal. Do you know the names of every medication you are taking, and do you know what time of day each one is prescribed to be taken, and why? If you cannot answer that question completely, you are not alone. Most patients cannot, and most appointments do not have time for that conversation. But it is a conversation you deserve to have. The fix is a conversation with your prescribing physician. The specific question to ask, write this down, is this: given my age and my blood pressure pattern, is the timing of each of my cardiovascular medications optimized for overnight safety? That is a precise clinical question. Any physician worth your trust will take it seriously. Bring your complete medication list to that appointment. Starting tonight, lay that list out and look at which medications you are currently taking in the evening hours. 2 more items after this one. And item 4. That is the one that even I had a significant blind spot about for the first 15 years of my career. Stay with me. The third habit is one that gets almost no attention in mainstream health content, and it is quietly damaging the hearts of seniors every single night across this country. It is sleeping in the wrong position. I already hear the skepticism. I had the same reaction when I first encountered the research. Sleep position? Seriously? But hear me out, because the mechanism is real. It is specific to people over 60, and the fix costs absolutely nothing. When you sleep on your right side, the heart, which sits slightly left of center in your chest, is compressed toward the right. This creates additional mechanical load on the right ventricle, which is already the thinner, more vulnerable chamber of the two. For younger people with healthy cardiac muscle and good ejection fraction, this is a non-issue. For seniors with any degree of cardiac remodeling, enlarged left ventricle, or reduced ejection fraction, conditions that are far more common in people over 60 than most people realize, right-side sleeping increases the workload on a system that is already operating closer to capacity. What happens when you sleep on your left side is structurally different. The heart hangs more freely in the pericardial sac. The great vessels, the aorta and the vena cava, are less compressed. The lymphatic drainage of the heart improves. Multiple studies in sleep cardiology have shown that left-side sleeping is associated with better heart rate variability during sleep, which is a direct marker of autonomic resilience and cardiovascular health. In patients with heart failure, right-side sleeping has been specifically linked to worsening nocturnal symptoms and reduced sleep quality. I sleep on my left side. So does my wife, also a physician. And before you ask, no, it is not always comfortable when you are used to something different. It takes about 2 weeks to adapt, but it is 2 weeks that is worth every night. Does any of this sound familiar? Have you found yourself sleeping in the same position for decades without anyone ever asking you about it? You are not alone. Most cardiac risk assessments never touch sleep position, but it matters. The fix here truly costs nothing. Tonight, when you lie down, shift to your left side. If you are a lifelong right side sleeper, place a pillow behind your back to prevent rolling over during the night. Give it 2 weeks, starting tonight. Now we come to item 4, the one I mentioned. The one I personally got wrong for the first 15 years of my career because I was never taught it and the literature on it did not catch up until much later. It is the pre-bed supplement combination that creates a hidden cardiac risk for seniors, specifically the combination of calcium supplements taken at night without the cofactors that control where that calcium goes. Here is the background. Calcium supplementation became standard advice for seniors, particularly women, to protect bone density. The evidence for bone protection is real. What the evidence also shows, in study after study since the 2010s, is that calcium supplements taken without adequate vitamin K2 and vitamin D3 do not reliably reach bone. They circulate in the blood, and circulating calcium in excess, particularly in the arteries, accelerates vascular calcification. This is the calcium paradox. The same mineral that is supposed to protect your skeleton can, in supplemental form taken incorrectly, calcify your coronary arteries and stiffen your vessel walls. Why does this matter more at night? Because nighttime is when your body's cellular repair and mineral transport processes are most active. If calcium is being deposited during that window without the K2 that directs it toward bone and away from soft tissue, the vascular damage accumulates over years of nights. You will not feel it happening. Your blood pressure may not spike. Your cholesterol numbers will look fine. And then one day, your doctor will order a coronary calcium scan and find calcification that nobody can adequately explain because nobody thought to ask about the supplements. The question to ask your doctor, and I mean this specifically, should I be taking vitamin K2, MK7, alongside my calcium supplement, and should I be taking calcium at a different time of day? The current evidence suggests calcium is better absorbed and better utilized when taken with meals rather than at bedtime. And 100 micrograms of K2-MK7 daily is what most integrative cardiologists now recommend as the cofactor to direct calcium appropriately. Talk to your physician before changing any supplement routine. Here is the 5th habit, and in some ways, it is the simplest one. It is also the one that most people dismiss immediately, right up until they see what happens inside the body when they do not account for it. It is going to bed dehydrated. Your body loses water during sleep through respiration, perspiration, and cellular metabolic processes. If you begin the night already dehydrated, which is extremely common in seniors because the thirst mechanism weakens significantly with age, meaning you often are not aware of how little you have drunk during the day, your blood viscosity increases during sleep. Thicker blood moves more slowly. It is more prone to clotting, and in arteries that are already narrowed by any degree of atherosclerosis. Slower and thicker blood in the overnight hours is a significant contributor to the phenomenon we call the morning surge. The spike in blood pressure and heart attack risk that peaks between 6 and 10 in the morning. Studies have consistently shown that fatal cardiac events cluster in the early morning hours. The conventional explanation is that cortisol and adrenaline rise naturally at waking. That is true. But the underappreciated piece is what happens during the hours preceding that surge, including overnight dehydration, concentrating the blood at exactly the moment when the body needs to respond quickly to the demands of rising and moving. It is never too late to address this. Even if you have been chronically underhydrated for years, correcting it tonight begins changing your overnight blood picture immediately. The fix is specific. Drink 8 ounces of water. Plain water, not juice, not tea. Approximately 30 to 45 minutes before bed. Not immediately before bed, because that will disrupt your sleep with bathroom trips. 30 to 45 minutes. That window allows the water to be absorbed and begin reducing blood viscosity before you fall asleep. 8 ounces. That is all. Starting tonight. I want to be honest with you for a moment. Not as a content creator, as a surgeon. I have stood at an operating table at 3 in the morning holding a heart that had survived decades of faithful work. 60, 65, 70 years of never stopping, never resting, never asking for anything, and watched it fail in my hands because of something that happened the night before. Something ordinary. A late dinner. The wrong side of the bed. A calcium supplement nobody thought to question. I have spoken to families in waiting rooms at dawn, families who had said goodnight 8 hours earlier with no idea that goodnight might be the last thing they ever said. Spouses, adult children. grandchildren old enough to understand what was happening and young enough to be permanently marked by it. In case after case, the contributing factors were not mysterious. They were not exotic. They were a late meal, an unreviewed medication list, a decades-long sleep position, a supplement taken without its cofactors, a day spent drinking coffee, and almost no water. These are not rare risk factors. They are the background noise of millions of ordinary evenings in millions of ordinary homes. And that background noise, accumulated night after night, year after year, slowly narrows the margin until one night the margin disappears entirely. I want to tell you about a patient. I'll call her Margaret. 73 years old, retired librarian, sharp as anyone I have ever met, had been managing her hypertension for 11 years with medication. She came to me after a concerning cardiac MRI showed early signs of left ventricular thickening. She was frightened. When I sat with her and went through her evening routine in detail, something almost no one had done, we found 4 of the 5 things I described today. Late dinner, calcium supplement at bedtime with no K2, right side sleeper. Never drank water after 6 because she didn't want to be up in the night. We changed all 4. That was the only intervention. No new medications, no procedures. 14 months later, her follow-up MRI showed measurable reduction in left ventricular mass. Her morning blood pressure readings, which had been consistently elevated despite medication, normalized. She told me at that appointment that she had been sleeping better than she had in 15 years. And the first thing she said when she saw those MRI results was, "Why did it take 11 years for someone to ask me what I do before I go to bed?" That question has stayed with me. It is a big part of why I make videos like this one. Let me bring it all together for you. 5 things you should never do before bed if you are over 60 and you want to protect your heart. Number 1, eat within 2 hours of sleep. It blunts your nocturnal blood pressure dip and creates an overnight pressure pattern your doctor likely cannot see in routine appointments. Number 2, take cardiovascular medications at the wrong time. Evening diuretics in particular can create nocturnal hypotension. Ask your physician specifically about medication timing relative to your overnight blood pressure pattern. Number 3, sleep on your right side. The left side position reduces mechanical load on the right ventricle, improves lymphatic drainage, and is associated with better heart rate variability during sleep. Number 4, take calcium supplements at night without vitamin K2 MK7. The calcium paradox is real. Talk to your physician about cofactor supplementation and consider shifting calcium intake to mealtimes. Number 5, go to bed dehydrated. Drink 8 ounces of water 30 to 45 minutes before sleep to reduce overnight blood viscosity and blunt the morning pressure surge. Which of these 5 do you recognize in your own evening routine? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one, and your answer matters, not just to me, but to the people reading below you who need to know they are not alone in this. There is someone in your life right now, a spouse, a sibling, a friend, a parent, who has no idea that what they do before bed could be working against the heart they have spent a lifetime depending on. Send this to them. That one share might be the most important thing you do today. I mean that. And if you want honest, evidence-based information that I wish every single one of my patients had access to long before they needed surgery, subscribe every week. That is the commitment I make to you. One last thing, and this is important to me that you hear it clearly. Everything I have shared today is based on published research and my clinical experience as a cardiothoracic surgeon. But your situation is yours alone. Your history is individual. Your medication list is specific to you. Before changing anything, any supplement, any medication timing, any routine, please speak with your own physician first. Bring this information to that conversation. That conversation is not a formality. It is the point. Better information leads to better conversations, and better conversations lead to better outcomes. That is the chain that matters. Your heart has been working for you every single minute of every single day for 60, 70 years without ever asking for anything in return. Give it this.